Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet watched through the observation deck as another batch of human prisoners was herded into the containment facility. Their heads hung low, their clothes tattered, their bodies bearing the marks of months of captivity. Yet something in their eyes remained unbroken, a flicker that made the reptilian commander's scales ripple with unease. Phase 1 complete, reported his aide, a mantis-like creature whose compound eyes reflected the harsh facility lights. The humans' military resistance has been crushed. Their cities burn. Their governments have fallen. Zethkar nodded, though satisfaction eluded him. In 40 cycles of conquest across 17 systems, he had never encountered a species quite like these mammals from the third planet. Other races had submitted within days of witnessing the hegemony's might. The crystalline Vortans had surrendered after their first city was destroyed. The proud warrior race of Kethmore had laid down their weapons when faced with orbital bombardment. But humans? They fought street by street, building by building, even when defeat was mathematically certain. They used improvised weapons, guerrilla tactics, and something the hegemony's war computers couldn't quantify: pure, stubborn defiance. "Begin Phase 2, Zethkar commanded. Break their spirit completely." The labor camps were designed with scientific precision. Each human was assigned tasks just beyond their physical limits, fed just enough to survive, given just enough rest to prevent death. The hegemony had perfected this system across a dozen worlds. Within months, any species would become docile, grateful servants. But the reports that reached Zethkar's desk defied all precedent. "Sir," his aide reported nervously, "the humans in Sector 7 have constructed some kind of memorial." "Memorial?" "They've been collecting small stones and arranging them in patterns. When we destroyed it, they rebuilt it the next day. When we punished them, they sang." Zethkar's claws scraped against his desk. "Sang? Ancient songs from their homeworld?" The punishment detail reported that instead of breaking morale, it seemed to strengthen them somehow. Over the following weeks, more disturbing reports arrived. Humans were sharing their meager food rations with the sick. They were teaching their young mathematics and history using scratches in the dirt. Most unnervingly, they were organizing. The first escape attempt came in the third month. 40 humans had somehow disabled the energy barriers, overpowered the guards, and freed nearly 200 prisoners before being recaptured. Under interrogation, they revealed nothing about their methods or accomplices. "Increase the guards," Zethkar ordered. "Double the surveillance." The second escape freed 800 prisoners and destroyed 3 transport vessels. The third disabled the facility's main power grid for 6 hours. By the 5th attempt, the humans weren't trying to escape anymore. They were conducting coordinated strikes against hegemony infrastructure. "Sir," the aide's voice trembled as it delivered the latest report. "Facility 12 has gone completely dark. No response to communications." When the rescue fleet arrived at Facility 12, they found something that would haunt hegemony nightmares for generations. The human prisoners hadn't just escaped. They had somehow turned the facility's own security systems against their captors. Hegemony guards hung in their own energy cages, while humans operated the control centers with impossible efficiency. But it was what the humans had done to the facility itself that truly shook the hegemony command. They had transformed the sterile prison into something resembling a settlement. Gardens grew in makeshift soil. Children played in areas that had been designed for suffering. Art covered walls that had been built to crush hope. "How?" Zethkar demanded when he toured the recaptured facility. "How did they learn our system so quickly?" The human they brought before him was a female named Sarah Chen, a former engineer from something called Earth's Pacific Colony. Her clothes were still prison issue, but she carried herself like a head of state. "You want to understand us?" she asked, her voice calm despite the energy restraints binding her. "Your mistake was thinking spirit and flesh were the same thing." "Explain," Zethkar hissed. Chen smiled, actually smiled at her captor. "You can chain our bodies, Commander. You can starve us, work us, even kill us. But spirit? Spirit isn't something you can touch with your claws or measure with your instruments. Every time you tried to break us, we found new ways to be human. Impossible. Every species breaks. It's a mathematical certainty." "Every species you've conquered was alone," Chen replied. "But humans were never truly alone. That memorial your soldiers kept destroying, it wasn't just stones, Commander. Each one represented someone we lost, someone we remembered, someone whose story we promised to carry forward. When you destroyed it, you only proved why it mattered. Over the following months, the pattern repeated across all hegemony facilities. Human prisoners didn't just resist, they adapted, learned, and eventually thrived. They reverse-engineered alien technology through careful observation. They developed new forms of organization that the hegemony social controllers couldn't predict or counter. Most disturbing of all, they began converting other species to their cause. The Vortans, who had served the hegemony faithfully for decades, began refusing orders. The Kethmore warriors started teaching human combat techniques to other prisoners. Even some hegemony soldiers began questioning orders that seemed increasingly pointless and cruel. The humans have to be eliminated, Zethkar's aide suggested during an emergency strategy meeting. Complete extermination. It's the only way. But Zethkar had studied the reports more carefully than anyone else. You don't understand, he said, his voice heavy with a new kind of fear. It's too late for that, sir. They've already won. The final report that crossed Zethkar's desk came from Facility 1, the hegemony's most secure prison. The human prisoners had somehow gained access to the facility's long-range communications array. Instead of calling for rescue, they had broadcast a message across every hegemony frequency. It wasn't a demand for surrender or a declaration of war. It was something far more dangerous, an invitation. To all beings under hegemony rule, the message began in dozens of languages. We have learned that freedom isn't something that can be granted or taken away. It's something that exists wherever conscious beings choose hope over despair, solidarity over isolation, and dignity over submission. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And together we are stronger than any chain they can forge. Within days, uprising began on 17 worlds simultaneously. The hegemony's vast empire, built on the assumption that broken spirits would remain broken, found itself facing something it had never encountered. A revolution led not by weapons or technology, but by an idea. As Zethkar watched his life's work crumble from his command ship, he finally understood what the human engineer had tried to tell him. They hadn't just failed to break humanity's spirit, they had allowed it to spread like a contagion throughout their empire. In his final transmission before abandoning his post, Zethkar sent a message to Hegemony Command: recommend immediate ceasefire and negotiation with human representatives. They have weaponized hope itself. Resistance is futile. The irony wasn't lost on him. After 40 cycles of conquest, the hegemony had finally encountered an enemy they couldn't defeat. The simple, stubborn refusal of conscious beings to accept that their circumstances defined their worth. Humanity hadn't just survived their attempt to break its spirit. It had taught the galaxy how to be unbreakable.